Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. We are truly honored to have the Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, and the Flemish Minister President, Jan Jan Boon, here with us in the audience. And now I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Mark Lemley. And I could spend a lot of time talking about his many accomplishments, but I'll just keep it really quick. He's done a lot and is very impressive. But Mark is the William H. Newcomb Professor of Law at Stanford Law School and the Director of the Stanford Program in Law, Science, and Technology. He's also a Senior Fellow at the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research, and we are really delighted to have him joining us here today. So Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all. So I'm going to do something that's fairly heretical at a conference devoted to sustainability, which is I'm going to talk about some reasons to be optimistic. Since we're at an economics program, I want to start with sort of economics. Economics, as we understand it in a capitalist market, is based on scarcity. Right? We understand how things are valued by price. And we value things in price based on the fact that it's hard to manufacture them. It costs money. We don't have enough of them. So we have to allocate them via price. And that economic system has worked really well in lots of ways. One way in which it's not worked terribly well historically has been the environment, precisely because we didn't actually know how to price the environment. And so we often just treated it at zero. Right? Sure, there's an externality, air pollution comes out of the factory, but we don't know how to price air pollution, so we just kind of throw it away. And we're starting, I think, to re-understand and relearn that. There are certainly economic reasons to think that we're now not only understanding, but maybe figuring out how to factor in environmental restrictions. Whether or not there are political will to do so across the world is another matter. But at least we, I think, understand how to do it. But I want to talk about another challenge to the economics of scarcity that comes from a very different direction. This starts with the internet. So it turns out that our story, right, things cost money to produce and distribute, and so we charge money for them, was pretty dramatically upended when we developed a technology that allowed us for a wide variety of things to reproduce and distribute things essentially for free. Now, essentially is doing some work there, and I'll come back to that. Suddenly, all of the things that we used to charge for in my world, intellectual property, could be distributed freely, and the initial reaction was panic. Right? We've got to stop this, right? We have to keep content off the internet because it blows up our traditional system for how we allocate price. Failing that, we thought, well, you know what? Maybe what we can do is use intellectual property. And intellectual property is, in essence, a way of artificially recreating the scarcity economics that we know and love. Right? We don't actually know how to deal with the fact that something's free, but if we just make it no longer freely available, if we make it scarce again, then we know how to price for it. And we tried both of those things for a while, and to some extent we use both of them today, but it turned out that a surprising thing happened as a result of the internet, which is not what economics would have predicted. No one will actually produce goods because they don't know how to get paid. It turned out that when we substantially reduced the costs of making and distributing things, lots and lots of people created enormous amounts of stuff, and only incidentally were some of them getting paid. Right? There is more content on the internet today than there has ever been in human history by several orders of magnitude, and the vast majority of it is there not because people have copyrights in it and they want to get paid for it, but because they have found other ways to get paid, because they can do it, because they love to do it. We've created a world in which there's an amazing amount of creativity in reasons that economics doesn't fully understand, right? As Dr. Johnson famously suggested that no man but a blockhead ever wrote except for money, it turns out that we're a world of blockheads, gleefully creating and sharing all kinds of content with the world. So what I want to suggest today is that the same sorts of technological changes and revolutions that sort of came to the internet and digital content are actually coming to a wide swath of the economy as a whole. A variety of technologies, including 3D printing, synthetic biology, robotics, and artificial intelligence, are offering the prospect of doing for many types of physical goods, manufacturing, what we've done for content on the internet. That is decentralizing production, making it so that everyone can generate things as they want, and dramatically dropping the costs of making and distributing those goods. And we've seen that not just, we've started to see it develop in a variety of circumstances. Everyone has talked about generative AI, and suddenly it's easy to create photographs and images, right, that were once hard. But I think we're going to see it in a substantial different array of areas, including a lot of high-cost manufacturing areas. So we're already seeing the use of 3D printing in areas like aerospace, home building, automotive technologies, to dramatically reduce the cost both of manufacturing and of customization. And I think this is in general a very good thing for the world, right? Economists think about scarcity, but we are in many respects looking ahead towards an abundance society. Now, of course, even in an abundant society, there turns out to be no such thing as a free lunch. Some things still have to be made and delivered, and that is where the semiconductor industry comes in, right? So we need, of course, raw materials, right? We all need food, we need energy. Even if you're going to 3D print things, you need the feedstock for 3D printing, right? You need the materials and the raw materials. And for many of these technologies, what you need are computers and chips. Right? And one of the things I suggest is that in a society in which we actually democratize and reduce the cost of making and distributing lots of things, not just content, the things that we can't actually reduce, right, like semiconductor chips and computers, become much more important. They become the sort of central part of the economics. Now, that means, I think, right, that sustainability becomes even more important in this industry than it otherwise would be, right? It's important in all industries, but in a world in which we can actually substantially reduce the cost of production of lots of other things by relying on really powerful computing chips and substantial compute, the energy it takes to compute, the energy it takes to manufacture become all in more and more important. But even then, I think the technologies are going to offer really substantial benefits, right? Digital networked automation plays a large role in the future of abundance across a wide variety of areas. It will, I think, change food production. I think it already has started to change energy production. We've seen really dramatic changes in the sort of mix of energy generation. We're not where we need to be, but we are, in a way that seemed frankly impossible 10 years ago, moving in the right direction. Right? We're moving in the right direction because the cost of sustainable energies like solar and electricity has dropped dramatically, in part because of some of the technologies I'm talking about. Once that happens, it's much easier to move to those technologies. But I also think these technologies change consumption patterns and behaviors in a way that can actually improve the environment directly. One of the side effects of the pandemic is that we all learned that a number of things that we thought required us to get on a plane and travel around the world, it can in fact be done over a Zoom call, right? And Zoom calls aren't free, they consume some electricity, right? But they are much, much cheaper, much, much better for the environment than getting on an airplane. And I think that turns out to be true in a wide variety of technologies, and even when it comes to things like distribution, right? It turns out, for instance, that having your packages delivered on a well-routed algorithm is a much more efficient way to actually move goods from place to place than having a bunch of people drive to shopping malls in suburbs and search around looking for what they want. So there's a wide variety, I think, of circumstances in which we can and will see environmental benefits out of these changes. That said, I think there are choke points and things we need to worry about. So one question is, how does the world respond to a universe of abundance? One way we might respond to abundance in capitalist societies, and you heard this at the very end of the panel that just preceded us, is demand more stuff. Right? That has traditionally been the capitalist response. Right? We've made it quite cheap and easy to get the things that felt like abundance to us now. We'll just define abundance as having even more stuff, bigger houses, and the like. So one possibility, I think, is that we start the cycle of consumption all over again. That is unsustainable in the 21st century. Right? It can't be the right response. But it doesn't have to be the response. Another potential is a sort of kind of manufactured exclusivity, right? So one of the interesting things about abundance is it offers the potential for everyone to have access to products and technologies that only a few people had access to in the past. How we actually respond to that as a society, I think, is going to be tremendously important. So there are perhaps right, reasons to think that people are interested not just in can I have things, right? Can I have the things everyone else has, but can I have more things than my neighbor, right? And a world in which the way I measure my value is can I have more things than my neighbor, right, might cause us to sort of remanufacture exclusivity, maybe through intellectual property, maybe through NFTs, right? NFTs seem to me a remarkable example of this idea that, well, I value something at hundreds of thousands of dollars, even though it is literally digitally identical to the thing everyone else has, because I have the one that is claimed to be the only one, right? It's the official one. I think there are broader forces at work that we also need to think about. One of the risks, I think, to an abundant society is corporate consolidation that prevents kind of real competition. One of the benefits of these technologies is that they allow distributed production and therefore allow the possibility of real competition, smaller companies participating in many of these markets. But there's been a very strong move in the economy in the opposite direction, right, towards consolidation into larger and larger corporations, and I think that's a potential danger. I think the sort of new rise of nationalism and tribalism is a potential danger to the benefits of this, and unfortunately, I think both your country and mine have recently seen evidence of this. We also see it in interesting ways in the semiconductor industry, right? There are, I think, many good reasons, as suggested on the prior panel, to invest in semiconductor manufacturing to make sure it happens in the United States, but is bound up with kind of nationalism, a mercantilism that says, it starts, I think, with we don't want it made in China, but it ends up becoming we want it made here, right? And I think that's a risk that can undermine some of the benefits. And then I think there are some broader economic challenges for what we do in a society in which it turns out to be really cheap to manufacture and distribute things. And manufacturing and distributing things has been how we employ a lot of people. Right? So one of those challenges to me is what is it that people do? Right? Now, I'm not too worried about this, right? We have found at various points throughout human history, we've heard economists say, you know what, right? Now that we've actually got efficient production down, nobody will have to work anymore. We'll all work 12 hours a week, as in the 1930s, as Keynes says, right? It doesn't happen. My guess is we'll find things to do. We'll find productive things to do, but there's going to be a lot of disruption, right? In a world in which we move from human drivers to self-driving cars, right? In a world in which we move from manufacturing plants to sort of home-generated 3D printing in the local environment, how people get paid in a non-scarcity environment is a concern. Whether the benefits of abundance accrue to labor or just to capital, I think, is another significant concern. Right? We've designed our economy in various ways to favor capital over labor, and one of the risks is that the move toward this technology could end up deepening income inequality and therefore deepening, I think, some of the political instability and tribalism that is at its root driven by that economic fear and that economic inequality. So these are big problems, but they're also, in a sense, nice problems to have, right? That is, they're problems that come from a space of freedom, a space of the ability to sort of envision a bunch of new things. And what I think we need is an economics of abundance. Right? An economics that does more than just try to replicate scarcity, because scarcity is how we understand how to price things. It's an economics that understands the value of things even when they're free and focuses us on the ways in which we can reduce or eliminate the economic and environmental harms of the things that still have to be generated for money. So with that, I will stop. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much to Mark for that, for those insights, Professor Lemley for those insights. And we are now going to transition, but I would just like to say thank you to all of the many people from CEPR, from the government of from the Dutch government and from the government of Flanders who were involved in helping to put together today's event. It would not obviously have happened without them, so please join me in thanking all of them. We also have many wonderful people here from industry and many people from government. And I want to just, here at CEPR, we try to make an effort to thank the people who are serving in government and thank them for their public service, because it's incredibly important that our government works well and efficiently and equitably. So please join me in thanking them as well. Thank you again for being with us today.